In the book of Numbers, chapters 19 to 21, you and I will encounter a series of diverse narratives, each revealing a unique aspect of Israel's wilderness journey. Chapter 19 details the law of the red heifer, a purification ritual symbolizing cleansing from sin. In chapter 20, we will see the Israelites struggling with rebellion and unbelief, leading to Moses' tragic mistake at Meribah, where he strikes the rock for water, defying God's command. This act results in Moses being barred from entering the Promised Land. Chapter 21 presents a mix of challenges and victories, such as the Israelites' complaints, fiery serpents sent as a divine punishment, and the bronze serpent as a means of healing. The chapter ends with accounts of military conquests over Arad, Sihon, and Og, signifying God's continual guidance and provision. Before I begin, I hope you pause for a moment to reflect on these chapters and consider how they mirror your own life's journey, filled with purification, rebellion, consequences, and victories. What lessons can you learn from Moses' experience at Meribah and apply in your own moments of trial and frustration? Will you pray with me? Lord, guide me through life's wilderness, teaching me obedience and faith in facing challenges. Strengthen me to trust in your promises and follow your path. For the sake of your Son, Jesus Christ, have mercy on me and forgive me, that I may delight in your will and walk in your ways to the glory of your name. Amen. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. The book of Numbers, chapter 19. The Lord spoke to Moses and to Aaron, saying, This is the statute of the law which the Lord has commanded, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, that they bring you a red heifer without spot, in which is no blemish, and on which never came a yoke. You shall give her to Eleazar the priest, and he shall bring her outside of the camp, and one shall kill her before his face. Eleazar the priest shall take of her blood with his finger, and sprinkle her blood toward the front of the tent of meeting 7 times. One shall burn the heifer in his sight. Her skin and her flesh, and her blood, with her dung, shall he burn. The priest shall take cedar wood, and hyssop, and scarlet, and cast it into the midst of the burning of the heifer. Then the priest shall wash his clothes, and he shall bathe his flesh in water. And afterward he shall come into the camp, and the priest shall be unclean until the evening. He who burns her shall wash his clothes in water, and bathe his flesh in water, and shall be unclean until the evening. A man who is clean shall gather up the ashes of the heifer, and lay them up outside of the camp in a clean place, and it shall be kept for the congregation of the children of Israel for a water for impurity. It is a sin offering. He who gathers the ashes of the heifer shall wash his clothes and be unclean until the evening. It shall be to the children of Israel, and to the stranger who lives as a foreigner among them, for a statute forever. He who touches the dead body of any man shall be unclean 7 days. The same shall purify himself with it on the 3rd day, and on the 7th day he shall be clean. But if he doesn't purify himself the 3rd day, then the 7th day he shall not be clean. Whoever touches a dead body, the body of a man who has died, and doesn't purify himself, defiles the Lord's tabernacle, and that soul shall be cut off from Israel. Because the water for impurity was not sprinkled on him, he shall be unclean. His uncleanness is yet on him. This is the law when a man dies in a tent. All who come into the tent, and all who are in the tent, shall be unclean 7 days. Every open vessel, which has no covering bound on it, is unclean. Whoever in the open field touches one who is slain with a sword, or a dead body, or a bone of a man, or a grave, shall be unclean 7 days. For the unclean they shall take of the ashes of the burning of the sin offering, and running water shall be put thereto in a vessel. A clean person shall take hyssop, and dip it in the water, and sprinkle it on the tent, and on all the vessels, and on the persons who were there, and on him who touched the bone, or the one slain, or the dead, or the grave. The clean person shall sprinkle on the unclean on the 3rd day, and on the 7th day. On the 7th day he shall purify himself, and wash his clothes, and bathe himself in water, and shall be clean at evening. But the man who shall be unclean, and shall not purify himself, that soul shall be cut off from among the assembly, because he has defiled the sanctuary of the Lord. The water for impurity has not been sprinkled on him. He is unclean. It shall be a perpetual statute to them. He who sprinkles the water for impurity shall wash his clothes, and he who touches the water for impurity shall be unclean until evening. Whatever the unclean person touches shall be unclean. The person who touches it shall be unclean until evening. The Book of Numbers, chapter 20. The children of Israel, the whole congregation, came into the wilderness of Zin in the 1st month, and the people stayed in Kadesh. And Miriam died there, and was buried there. There was no water for the congregation, and they assembled themselves together against Moses and against Aaron. The people strove with Moses and spoke, saying, We wish that we had died when our brothers died before Yahweh. Why have you brought the assembly of Yahweh into this wilderness, that we should die there, we and our animals? Why have you made us to come up out of Egypt, to bring us into this evil place? It is no place of seed, or of figs, or of vines, or of pomegranates, neither is there any water to drink. Moses and Aaron went from the presence of the assembly to the door of the tent of meeting, and fell on their faces, and the glory of Yahweh appeared to them. Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, Take the rod, and assemble the congregation, you and Aaron your brother, and speak to the rock before their eyes, that it give forth its water, and you shall bring forth to them water out of the rock, so you shall give the congregation and their livestock drink. Moses took the rod from before Yahweh, as he commanded him. Moses and Aaron gathered the assembly together before the rock, and he said to them, Hear now, you rebels, shall we bring you water out of this rock? Moses lifted up his hand, and struck the rock with his rod twice, and water came forth abundantly, and the congregation drank, and their livestock. Yahweh said to Moses and Aaron, Because you didn't believe in me, to sanctify me in the eyes of the children of Israel, therefore you shall not bring this assembly into the land which I have given them. This is the water of Meribah, because the children of Israel strove with Yahweh, and he was sanctified in them. Moses sent messengers from Kadesh to the king of Edom, saying, Thus says your brother Israel, You know all the travail that has happened to us, how our fathers went down into Egypt, and we lived in Egypt a long time, and the Egyptians dealt ill with us and our fathers. And when we cried to Yahweh, he heard our voice, and sent an angel, and brought us forth out of Egypt. And behold, we are in Kadesh, a city in the uttermost of your border. Please let us pass through your country. We will not pass through field or through vineyard, neither will we drink of the water of the wells. We will go by the king's highway. We will not turn to the right hand nor to the left, until we have passed your border. But Edom said to him, You shall not pass through me, lest I come out with the sword against you. The children of Israel said to him, "We will go up by the highway, and if we drink of your water, I and my livestock, then I will give its price. Only let me pass through on my feet, nothing else." But he said, "You shall not pass through." Edom came out against him with much people and with a strong hand. Thus Edom refused to give Israel passage through his border. Therefore Israel turned away from him. They traveled from Kadesh, and the children of Israel, even the whole congregation, came to Mount Hor. Yahweh spoke to Moses and Aaron in Mount Hor, by the border of the land of Edom, saying, "Aaron shall be gathered to his people, for he shall not enter into the land which I have given to the children of Israel, because you rebelled against my word at the water of Meribah. Take Aaron and Eleazar his son, and bring them up to Mount Hor, and strip Aaron of his garments, and put them on Eleazar his son, and Aaron shall be gathered to his people, and shall die there." Moses did as Yahweh commanded, and they went up into Mount Hor in the sight of all the congregation. Moses stripped Aaron of his garments, and put them on Eleazar his son, and Aaron died there on the top of the mount. And Moses and Eleazar came down from the mount. When all the congregation saw that Aaron was dead, they mourned for Aaron 30 days, even all the house of Israel. The Book of Numbers, chapter 21. When the Canaanite, the king of Arad, who lived in the south, heard that Israel came by the way of Atharim, he fought against Israel, and took some of them captive. Israel vowed a vow to Yahweh, and said, "If you will indeed deliver this people into my hand, then I will utterly destroy their cities." Yahweh listened to the voice of Israel, and delivered up the Canaanites. And they utterly destroyed them and their cities, and the name of the place was called Hormah. Israel traveled from Mount Hor by the way of the Red Sea to go around the land of Edom. The soul of the people was very discouraged because of the way. The people spoke against God and against Moses. "Why have you brought us up out of Egypt to die in the wilderness? For there is no bread, neither is there any water, and our soul loathes this light bread." Yahweh sent fiery serpents among the people, and they bit the people, and many people of Israel died. The people came to Moses and said, "We have sinned, because we have spoken against Yahweh and against you. Pray to Yahweh, that he take away the serpents from us." Moses prayed for the people. Yahweh said to Moses, "Make a fiery serpent, and set it on a standard, and it shall happen, that everyone who is bitten, when he sees it, shall live." Moses made a serpent of brass, and set it on the standard. And it happened, that if a serpent had bitten any man, when he looked to the serpent of brass, he lived. The children of Israel traveled, and encamped in Oboth. They traveled from Oboth, and encamped at Iyabarim, in the wilderness which is before Moab, toward the sunrise. From there they traveled, and encamped in the valley of Zered. From there they traveled, and encamped on the other side of the Arnon, which is in the wilderness, that comes out of the border of the Amorites. For the Arnon is the border of Moab, between Moab and the Amorites. Therefore it is said in the book of the wars of Yahweh, Vaheb and Suphah, the valleys of the Arnon, and the slope of the valleys that inclines toward the dwelling of Ar, leans on the border of Moab. From there they traveled to Beer. That is the well of which Yahweh said to Moses, "Gather the people together, and I will give them water." Then Israel sang this song, "Spring up, O well, sing to it, the well which the princes dug, which the nobles of the people dug, with the scepter and with their staffs. From the wilderness they traveled to Mattanah, and from Mattanah to Nahaliel, and from Nahaliel to Bamoth, and from Bamoth to the valley that is in the field of Moab, to the top of Pisgah, which looks down on the desert. Israel sent messengers to Sihon king of the Amorites, saying, "Let me pass through your land. We will not turn aside into field or into vineyard. We will not drink of the waters of the well. But we will go along by the king's highway until we have passed your border." Sihon would not allow Israel to pass through his border. But Sihon gathered all his people together and went out against Israel into the wilderness, and came to Jahaz, and he fought against Israel. Israel struck him with the edge of the sword, and possessed his land from the Arnon to the Jabbok, even to the children of Ammon. For the border of the children of Ammon was strong. Israel took all these cities. And Israel lived in all the cities of the Amorites, in Heshbon, and in all its towns. For Heshbon was the city of Sihon, the king of the Amorites, who had fought against the former king of Moab, and taken all his land out of his hand, even to the Arnon. Therefore those who speak in Proverbs say, "Come to Heshbon. Let the city of Sihon be built and established. For a fire has gone out of Heshbon, a flame from the city of that Sihon. It has devoured Ar of Moab, the lords of the high places of the Arnon. Woe to you, Moab! You are undone, people of Chemosh. He has given his sons as fugitives, and his daughters into captivity, to Sihon, king of the Amorites. We have shot at them. Heshbon has perished even to Dibon, and we have laid waste even to Nophah, which reaches to Medeba." Thus Israel lived in the land of the Amorites. Moses sent to spy out Jazer, and they took its towns, and drove out the Amorites who were there. They turned and went up by the way of Bashan, and Og the king of Bashan went out against them, he and all his people, to battle at Edrei. Yahweh said to Moses, "Don't fear him, for I have delivered him into your hand, and all his people and his land. And you shall do to him as you did to Sihon king of the Amorites, who lived at Heshbon." So they struck him and his sons and all his people, until there was none left him remaining, and they possessed his land.